Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club. What is up, gentlemen?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
What up? What up? So much stress. Ben and I were in the middle of a project earlier today that was freaking stressful, just lamely stressful too. Like didn't have to be stressful, but just one of those ones where it was like, man, I hate lame stress. So if you're experiencing lame stress today, you are in good company. And we're going to talk about good stuff today, especially around what is your change protocol. I know when I first started working, one of my first big boy jobs was running project management for a large credit union in our area. Who was like the biggest bank in our area, had the best notoriety, was the hometown hero. It's one of the things credit unions can kind of corner better than a big national chain. And I remember I worked a lot with the CEO, worked really closely to him because I helped him a lot with acquisition and buildings and all those different pieces. And I remember he used to talk about bookshelf strategies. And that was, hey, when we come up against the bullshit, because it's going to strike, like what is something that we can just pull off the shelf? If we come up against this, what are we going to do with it? And if we come up against this, what are we going to do with it? And when we come up against this, how are we going to handle it? Rather than in the moment, then it kind of takes some of the stress out of the firefight, right? Like anytime there's a big pivot, there's stress in the firefight. But if you can have something where, no, we've already battle tested something. We've already thought about this before we ended up in the fire. And that helps us once we get into the fire to know how to handle it. I think it's really good. So today we're going to talk about change management. We're going to talk about what to do when you have to pivot and like, what are the things we really need to anchor into and where are the places we can be agile. So maybe Ben, you want to rattle off some like change management scenarios, like what people should be thinking about? What are the changes that we could be up against? Some of the stuff maybe our clients are in currently right now that we're having
For
to face.
sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I just even in the past, with roasters, we came up against liens on new locations because the contracting company went bankrupt while they were building our building.
At the end, they got us the full building all the way done. And then we got slapped with all these liens because we had paid them all the money to pay their subs. And then they just didn't pay the subs. And then so all the subs slapped liens, like 15 different subs slapped liens on our building. That was his little sweetheart.
Yep. All of a sudden the electrician wants to get paid again. The plumber wants to get paid again. The drywall guys want to get paid again. Yeah, that's a fun one. That's one that you don't ever really see coming. I mean,
400K we had to come up with twice.
it's insane. Or what happens if, you've got a great location that you really love, but and you're leasing and the landowner says, "Hey, I'm selling." You're gonna have to negotiate a contract with somebody else now. Like you're like, whoa. That's especially
Find a new location, right? Negotiate a new
Yep.
location. Is the building built or not yet? Like, do we build something of our own? Super
Yep.
useful.
Name
That's something one of our
changes.
clients is in. Name
Yeah.
changes. Yeah, talk about
Name
that one.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a client who has somebody come and slap a lawsuit on them saying, "Hey, you're using my name," and they go, "Wait, what? You don't operate in our state. You don't operate in the 4 states around us." But this other company's got plenty of cash and they're willing to bankroll lawyers for as long as it takes, and they're going to come after anybody who even looks close to them. So there's a lot of scenarios in business, especially as you grow and you become much more established and people start to recognize you as having multiple locations and saying, "Hey, a lawsuit against this company might actually be a payout for me." Like,
Mhm.
it's kind of the double-edged sword of being a successful, growing, larger company is that the larger you grow, the more people look at you and the more people go, how could I extract a couple extra dollars for myself around these guys? And so in all of those scenarios, there's nothing that is inherently your fault or you're wrong at, but it does require you to go, oh, crap. What am I going to do now?
Or how about like, I think let's talk about one that's not necessarily bad news. Some of it's good news, like now over 50 employees.
Yeah.
Remember that, Ben? Remember we
Yep.
crossed over that threshold and we're like, shit, that's a whole game changer, right? Because now we're
Hmm.
talking about health insurance. We're talking about there are certain parameters the state holds on you when you exceed a certain number of employees that, well, now you're in the big boys club. So you have to pay the big boy fees. And Ben, I know we had to really work through that and try and figure out the solves on that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole, I mean, God, you don't even get down the rabbit hole of state regulations. I mean, it seems like every 10 or 20 employees that you add, there's a new regulation requirement. Okay, now you're required to pay taxes on X amount of their paycheck for state family medical leave. And now that you have 50 employees, well, now you have to offer some sort of benefits. Well, now that you have 150 employees, you need to offer even more. And so if you're not watching all of that, if you just have one or two locations, you're probably like, I don't really care. It doesn't apply to me. But if you want to grow, like these things happen. And if you're not prepared for them, they can just be giant balls of stress that can really, really be like put you out of commission for a little bit because you're like, I don't even know where to start with handling this.
I think that's a good place to talk about. And Drew, maybe you could talk about that a little bit of like, we're human. It's okay to start with emotion first, right? Like it's okay. It doesn't feel good to get kicked in the nuts, man. Like it does not feel good. Nobody's like, yeah, kick me again. Like, you know what I mean? Like it does not feel good. And so I think let's acknowledge we're human and it's okay to have a freak out moment. Drew, what do you think
I,
about that?
I love you tap me on the shoulder to talk about an emotional response.
I love
And
it. What was
yeah,
that emotion?
it's
Did you see that cartoon, Ben? That maybe because of Lenny, like that cartoon about the emotions. I forgot what it's about. But there's
oh
the
the
hot
movie.
there's the anger one where it's like, oh, that's what you want? Is that what? Okay, bam, and he fires up, and it's like fire goes off the top of his head. So anyway,
That's not a characteristic I carry around.
no, it's not. I love it. You
No,
hold it down.
the,
You hold the top on.
I think that one of the reasons that our businesses do so well is because we're passionate about what we do. We're not just looking at the bottom line. Of course, that's important, but there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just monetary. This is a fulfilling thing that a lot of us do.
Mhm.
It's something we care about. It's something that it takes a good portion of our waking, thoughts and concerns. So when you've been investing in an idea or a concept or, a version of reality that you've gotten comfortable with and excited about, and you want to build, and suddenly that's all challenged. It can be a little bit disheartening, confusing. It's stressful. And I think that it makes sense to have a response that is a little bit emotional. What we did for a long time at Roasters, which is kind of odd because we always talked about, plan B, C, D, all the extra plans. We had really made that a focus about a year prior to COVID, and then COVID hit. So it already had us thinking towards alternative solutions to unusual problems. And I think one huge effect of that is encouraging the culture of independent and free thinking within the business. So we don't want to manage our managers' daily lives. We don't want to manage our baristas' daily lives. We want to encourage, problem solving, free thinking, critical thinking, all these skills. And it's born from something like this. When you get comfortable thinking outside the box of the realm of what could happen, and if this unusual thing happens, if an asteroid hits one of our stores, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
Start with outlandish and work your way back to reality, and you'll be surprised at all of the problems that you solve. Where you make your way back to something you expect to happen.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there. I think all of us can be creatures to habit and hate change. I know for me, man, that was one of the biggest things I learned buying a business, owning a business, that business failing. Like I talk about that in, if you haven't checked it out, free masterclass that we do here with coffee experts. If you go to yourfirstdrivethrough.coffee, I think it's actually myfirstdrivethrough.coffee. I talk about my adventure with my first business and buying into it and putting so much heart and soul into it and pulling a bunch of equity out of my house to do it and like front loading the thing and then having it fail and the lessons that were learned out of it. And then the humility that comes out of the backside of like having to peddle all my wares. Like I still had all the stuff I had to sell and try and liquidate to try and make recoup some of my money. Nobody likes that, right? Nobody likes change. Nobody likes failure, but I'll tell you what, the lessons I learned in that business have paid off in dividends, 10x, 20x of anything that I could have made in that business. I've made now because of lessons learned then. So I think as we come up against things like this, I feel like it's almost one of those things where it's like a notch on your belt. Like you should actually be proud that you've been up against those things. I think between the three of us here on this call, the amount of bullshit that we've had to wade through in coffee shop land, I think it's made us experts. That's why coffee experts exist. It's because I tell you guys this all the time. I am confident that no matter what any coffee shop is facing, if they were to roll up on us and say, hey, would you be willing to come alongside of us and consult us for a season and help us navigate this? There's nothing that I'd be intimidated to face with our team because I feel like we've seen so much, but what that required was taking some lumps, right? Like that's not just like walking through the park. We've been in business all these years, no problem. Like just never having to face a difficult thing. It's like, no, take the lumps and learn from them. And I would say, so after you experience the emotion, probably the next step is, okay, so how are we going to handle this? And I think one of the really key questions that we need to ask ourselves is this an opportunity for change? Because I think that we've already been disrupted, right? Our pattern has already been disrupted. So now I think let's lean into it and say, okay, so what can we do better? So, Drew and I have a cafe down in Belize. It's the only cafe we have. All the rest of ours are drive-through, right? So as we come up on questions about, okay, so for that location, is it always going to be a cafe? Are we going to, because our model really isn't cafe. The only reason we chose this one is because it gets so much walking traffic and we can treat it like a drive-through because the frequency of people passing by is like car counts, right? So if you can peel off a percentage of car counts, that's how you determine an A, B, C location when it comes to like a value source. And so for us, like we've had a lot of conversations about, are we ever going to make that a drive-through? We can't make that a drive-through where it's at. If we did move it, where would we want to move it? If we can't stay close to the center of the core of the city we're in now, is that going to be too much heartbreak for us? Because Drew and I are really tied to it because we love the town we're in, So I think it's always good when we see something coming at us. That's one of our bookshelf strategies, right? Are we going to do another cafe or are we going to always stick to drive-through only model? And I think that it's good for us to work through it. I know for the client we've got that's had to challenge the name, like we have worked with them through name changes a lot. Do we take this as an opportunity to pivot completely and change to a whole new name? Or do we just barely change the name? Do we just slightly change the name? So that way we're emphasizing something that's an established brand and we don't have to change everything. So I think realizing emotion is good to start with, but we can't live there. And the next step that we have to take into it is this an opportunity for us to stay agile? Like, let's not get so crotchety and old that we're not able to actually challenge our systems to say, is it time for a change?
And I would say to your point of bookshelf strategies, make sure you're recording, or at least for God's sake, writing down in a notebook the decisions that you made and the changes that you had to made for the inevitability of it happening again in the future. I mean, COVID was a big one for us in that it was like somebody at the shop gets COVID and is working. What the hell do we do? Okay, well, I guess we close the shop for 3 days and we clean everything and then we figure it out. And then we're like, okay, we think that works. We were able to get open again pretty quickly. 3 weeks later, another shop. Okay, somebody has COVID. Okay, what did we just do 3 weeks ago that worked well? Like, write it down, write it down, write it down. And of course, the lovely thing about COVID is like we would come up with a solution and then like 3 or 4 weeks later, the state would say, actually, don't do that, do this instead. So we were always bunny hopping between solutions. But But as much as you can, when you do come up against these issues, because if you're in business long enough, something is going to happen. Just make sure that you have some way of recording it so that, the huge meltdown you have one year, and then the 3 good years you have, well, on that 5th year, hopefully if you face that same meltdown again, you're like, oh yeah, that is my bookshelf strategy. We closed the location for X amount of days. We moved employees around. We were able to do a pop-up somewhere else. Just make sure you record that so that you can, so every time this happens, you're not like, oh my God, what did we do? I totally forgot. And you're just running into the same wall over and over again because you're not recording what your solution originally was.
You know, it was, sorry, Judy, you have something to add to that? He's like, no, too close to home. Know what another one was a good example we didn't even talk about, Ben, was Black Lives Matter. Remember, like that one was like, we did not handle that well at Roasters. And because we did not handle that well at Roasters, that thing went off like a pipe bomb in our hand. And like, then we have actual employees outside in the picket line picketing against it. Like that was a really hard lesson learned. So how do we handle things that in the political atmosphere, especially in a cancel culture, like how do we deal with things like that? Do we get involved? Do we stay like out of the conversation? Like I think that led to a lot of us creating some policy around what do we talk about? What do we not talk about? What's our company stance on things? What's not our company stance on things? How involved do we get on passionate arguments that are on two sides of the fence that we realize is going to polarize some of our customers if we lean too far one way or the other? I think that's really important to identify. And maybe you're listening and you're like, no, hell no, I'm in Portland. I take stands on things. That's what I do. Realizing then that's your brand. And that's part of your culture core, and take the lumps that come with it, because you're going to get lumps that come with that, And I think, or maybe a right wing, like the Chick-fil-A's, they're going to take the lumps for taking the stand that they are going to take. And that's okay. If that's part of your ethos and you're really passionate about that, just realize that's fine, but you're going to take lumps for that because they do. That puts the crosshairs on you.
My biggest piece of advice, one of the things that I recorded out of all of that is, no matter which way you lean, if you have one of your employees protesting your business outside of your business, you should probably let that employee go as soon as possible. Don't try to keep them around.
We tried to keep her happy, and we just could not do it. No way to make it happen. And then she started, like bad apple, she started polluting the rest of employees that were in there. That was a bad scenario.
I mean, we did just kind of talk about brand identity a few episodes prior to this one. So it's, one thing that I've always focused on heavily when I was at Roasters and now is, the mission statement, the core values. What is it ultimately that we're doing here? Of course, we're serving coffee, but why? What is the purpose of, or whatever, obviously we're coffee people of your business. What's the purpose? What's your stance? As you mentioned, Chick-fil-A, or, maybe somebody in a city, they'll have their stances, and, stick as close to your mission as possible, because when you chose it, you're going to be building, most of your decisions you're making are based on that direction of the mission statement, the direction of, how you're developing your internal culture, how you're developing out your systems, how you're creating your brand identity, how you're reaching out to the market. All these things are ultimately from a certain point. And so finding out what that point is, if your mission changes over time, great. Figure out what it is, because when hard times do come, you're going to have somebody you can lean back on. This is the reason that we're doing this business. And so the decisions I'm going to make, I'm going to run through this filter, the mission filter, to figure out what to do next.
That's a great point.
Super good. Yeah. So I think as we think through decision-making, as we think through pivots, I would say the last thing, and just ending on it here, is find a trusted advisor, man. Like whether that's tax problems, find somebody you can trust with taxes, right? If it's an issue with finding a new location, make sure you're dealing with a realtor that has dealt with your kind of business before. That you know what you're shopping for, what you're looking at, because you could have a great location that you think is ideal, but if the traffic's going the wrong way, or there's something about that part of town you don't know, like it's good to find somebody as an expert. And if there are coffee questions you need expert answers on, just know we'd love to help. That doesn't always get tied to a dollar amount. Like hit us up on socials. If you're struggling with something, we would love to give you our best answer on that. And if it leads to us working with you, we'd love that. And if not, just know we're here to support you. We love this industry. We've been doing it a long time. We've been doing it in a lot of different places. Drew and I, with the first drive-through coffee in the country of Belize, have been up against a lot of things in foreign countries, a long way away from the place that we live. So all things considered, just remain agile. Don't allow the emotion to overwhelm you, and keep kicking ass, because you're here because you love coffee and you love your customers. So don't forget that.
Right.
All righty, boys. That's another episode, Coffee Experts. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week here on Coffee Experts Club.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.